Welcoming back Brian Lazar, Deputy Director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. What are the conditions up there currently, and what are we expecting?
Yeah, good to see you again. Thanks for having us back. Let's just take you to kind of what our homepage map is showing in terms of avalanche danger. And as you can see, it's a mix of moderate avalanche danger and then low or generally safe avalanche conditions in those areas that are showing green. And it's really kind of a tale of two different snowpacks in our state. Some areas are a little bit deeper and some areas are shallow. The deeper areas are those moderate or yellow level 2 out of 5 avalanche danger areas. And so here is an example of what our thinner snowpack areas look like. And the snowpack structure is really the same story no matter where you go. The only difference is depth. So here is an example of a thinner snowpack area. And you can see we've got weak snow near the ground and then a thinner, stiffer, cohesive layer of snow over that. Here's another example of a thin snowpack area. So you can see we're only looking at about a foot or 18 inches of snow on the ground. And it's just not enough snow coverage to really pose much of an avalanche threat. As we move into our deeper snowpack areas, you can still see this line demarcating the overlying stronger snow over the weak snow near the bottom of the snowpack. But you can see that this is quite a bit deeper. So here we're looking at snowpack depths of 2 feet, maybe 30 inches on the ground. And so this is enough snow coverage to kind of obscure the ground cover, and it's going to allow people to trigger bigger avalanches in those moderate danger areas. So then what we saw Wednesday night into Thursday morning was a pretty quick moving storm that dropped, generally kind of 1 to 4 inches across most mountain areas. Although we did have areas up in the park range here, in the portions of the flat top mountains, and then portions of the Elk Mountains that got well over kind of 6 inches of snow. And in those areas, we have a new avalanche problem that involves wind drifted snow. And so if we look in those deeper areas, these are the kinds of avalanche problems that we're dealing with. On the top is the persistent slab avalanche problem. And that's where we're expecting avalanches to break deeper into the snowpack on those weak layers near the ground. You can see they're really confined to north and northeast aspects. In some of the deeper zones, that problem extends down into the near tree line elevation band. And in areas that got more than about 6 inches of snow out of that Wednesday to Thursday morning storm, we have a wind slab avalanche problem. And again, it's overlying those north and northeast facing slopes. But because the storm ended with westerly winds, that problem has extended to east facing slopes as well. So where we've got these problems stacked on top of one another, these north and northeast facing slopes, these are the most dangerous. This is where you're most likely to trigger an avalanche that could be big enough to bury or kill you. In the low danger areas, we just have that persistent slab avalanche problem with that thin slab of cohesive snow over weak snow near the ground. But you can see here the avalanche size is generally small. Small avalanches, in most cases, are not big enough to really injure or harm a person. The exception would be if you're in a terrain trap. So if you get knocked off your feet and kind of dragged through the rocks or into a gully or over a cliff, even those small avalanches could potentially be dangerous. And so here's an example of some of the avalanches that we've seen over the last several days. And they're really good illustrations of the kinds of avalanches we want to warn people about as we move into the weekend and into early next week. So you can see we've got avalanches that are breaking on that old snow near the ground. And what we're really trying to warn people of is identifying where you find these wind drifted slopes, slopes that catch wind drifted snow, such as just below ridge lines, like in this image here, down in the North San Juan Mountains, or this image here in the Saguache Range. This cornice is a really good indicator that this slope is being wind loaded. And you can see that these are thin avalanches, but they are breaking near the ground. And even taking a ride here may not bury you, but that would certainly be an ugly ride, being dragged through rocks like that. And then here's an example of an avalanche that was triggered remotely or from a distance by people skiing up near the Eisenhower Tunnel. And this is a really clear sign of instability. So often in our forecast, we'll warn people to look for cracking or audible collapsing or booming in the snowpack. This is a really good image of a snowpack that had collapsed and then cracked. And when you see these kinds of indicators, it's a clear sign of an unstable snowpack. And it's really good to move to lower angle terrain, slopes less than about 30 degrees without overhead hazard, should you come across these signs.
Sure. Now, and depending on how high up you go and deep into the backcountry, people really want to pay attention to the grounds and the shifting of the snow and the depth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, you're going to want to get your forecast at colorado.gov/avalanche. The avalanche danger is likely to stay fairly steady as we move through the weekend and into early next week with no big new storms on the horizon. But those weak layers responsible for the moderate danger are very slow to heal. So don't expect an easing in avalanche danger over the next several days.
Well, great. Good way to keep informed. Brian, always nice to see you. Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.